this is a very well-attended Zoom meeting. Bandwidth can be a problem, and we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to enjoy both the audio and the video of Mark's comments. So I am going to ask each of us, once Mark starts, to not only mute yourselves, but please turn off your video so that we can preserve bandwidth so that everything goes smoothly. We will be taking questions at the end of the presentation. We'll ask you to hold them till then. However, at any time during the program, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat box at the on your screen, and then Mary Ann will be taking questions and answers at the end of Mark's comments. So with that, I'd like to thank you again for being with us, and I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ann Connors, who does such a great job organizing all of our programs, and ask Mary Ann to introduce today's guest speaker. So Mary Ann, it's yours.
Thanks, Nikki. Morning, Mark. Mark is known to all of us as a columnist and editorial writer with the Daytona Beach News-Journal, where he has been for several decades. And he has commented on local events in history, brought us information, certainly with all the humor it deserves. And we are going to answer the question today. Mark, has anything interesting happened with this election? We will look to you to bring us some perspective in terms of both the local and national events. With that, we will turn it over to Mark. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I remember talking to you in a more conventional manner 4 years ago after the election, and well, I'm here again to do the same thing. And thank you for asking me. And I've always been a fan of the work of the League of Women Voters, breaking down barriers to voting and promoting basic civic education, something that kind of makes my job easier. One of the things about writing about public affairs is that you have to explain everything all the time. Sports writers don't need to explain when a player rounds home plate, another run gets tallied. You know, they just get to write about the action. But a politics writer has to always stop the narrative flow to explain every last thing. And like every 4 years, the whole electoral college comes as a total surprise to an amazing percentage of the voting public. So I appreciate your work in countering what pollsters and political scientists politely call the low information voter. They use the term because talking about mouth breathers and silly heads sounds so subjective. This guy isn't so ignorant he can't fill in the circle on the ballot, right? No, bless his heart, he's just a low information voter, and goes on Facebook each day, and it's a whole new world for him. So thank you for fighting that. Once again, you know, I'm looking at starting at the national returns for as it affects, you know, my little part of the world. Volusia County is again a state bellwether, but now we're a bellwether just for northern Florida. Since the county took on its current boundaries in 1917, that was when Flagler got chopped off, Volusia has voted for the statewide winner in every presidential election until 2000, maybe, depending on who really won, and certainly by 2012. And we voted for every gubernatorial, we voted along with the state for every gubernatorial election except in 1916. But since 2012, things have changed a bit. We've shifted decidedly red. That was the year, you'll recall, that Volusia was one of only 2 Florida counties to vote for that voted for Barack Obama that swung to Mitt Romney. The other county was Flagler County. And then in 2016, last time I talked to you all, Donald Trump won Volusia County by almost 12.9 points, while narrowly winning the state by only 1.2 points. 2018, Ron DeSantis won by less than 0.5%, but in Volusia County, he won by a big 8%. And this year, Donald Trump got 56.4% of the Florida vote, of the Volusia County vote, excuse me, compared to a much narrower 51.2% statewide. So why is this? Well, different people have different views about this, but I think that Volusia, and it's because Volusia and Flagler's population skews older than other parts of the state. And as we become more of a retirement center, you know, think of the Margaritaville and other over 55 housing developments. We're more so. About a quarter of Volusians are now over 65, and 30% of Flaglerites are over 65. And you compare that to 16% nationally. We're not quite the villages, but we're kind of getting there. So I do. The big question that state pundits are asking this year is, has Florida changed from a purple state to a red state? And personally, I think we're far too fluid to say on the basis of 2 elections that we are. Where what you see in Florida is a very strong urban-rural pattern with blue urban counties, red more rural counties. But we have such a turnover in population that it's really hard to make a hard and fast characterization of us. We're not quite like South Carolina. And this year, gee, look at Georgia. I would have never predicted that Georgia would have gone Democratic this year and Florida wouldn't. However, I will say that it's pretty decisive that Volusia Flagler are no longer indicative of the state as a whole. We're now pretty solidly red counties. On local elections, I proved once again that, like, I don't know, I have no ability to predict races. Everything I thought was wrong. And that's encouraging because it shows that, like, we're not that predictable. It's not set. The biggest upset, of course, was the county council race. And that saw County Council member Deb Denny's, who had been on area ballots since 1994, beaten by Jeff Brower, who had only run ever once before. And the one time he ran like third in a 4-person race. Denny's had some pretty big establishment endorsements, starting with the outgoing county council chair, Ed Kelly, and a 3-to-1 fundraising advantage, not counting the PACs. So on the surface, it did seem like a very easy call. But there's a lot of unhappiness with growth issues. There's a lot of unhappiness with the county council in general, and being able to present himself as a fresh face benefited Brower. Another odd thing was that both Brower and Denny's are Republicans, so Democrats really had nowhere to go. The Democratic vote did not seem to go to one or the other. Neither one really made that big a pitch to Democrats. So, you know, these were people, you know, this is a good third of the voting population with nowhere to go. I looked at the difference between the mail-in and in-person vote, which is a good indication of where the Democrats are going. And Brower won both. There wasn't a big difference in the margin. And so whether Brower will be somebody who will be with us for a while, or kind of more like Jason Davis, who came in as a anti-establishment candidate but couldn't find his footing after being once he was part of the establishment as a county council member, remains to be seen. I fully expect to be surprised, and we'll just see what the year ahead holds. Another big upset, and one I would not have predicted, was in the Daytona Beach City Commission race. Bob Gillian was the longest serving member of the City Commission, and kind of an expert on transportation issues, so which will be a loss to the commission. It was not even close. He won only 40% of the vote to Cantu's 60%. And again, why I can't tell you. Both people are Republicans, so again, there's not a you can't say that party made a difference, because they're both Republicans, and that seems to be happening a lot lately. Daytona Beach, however, is pretty blue, at least in the mainland, at least in Gillian's district. But there you go. Another person who suffered because of unhappiness on, in this case, city issues, and again, growth issues. We're having growing pains this year, and this is going to be a theme you're going to see in elections coming up, at least once the recession is over and people start building again. Gillian was seeking a 5th term, a long time. Daytona Beach does not have term limits. I personally am an advocate for frequent elections and no term limits. I think if you face the voters a lot in contested elections, you have the people who don't know what they're doing get weeded out, and you get you have the benefit of experience. The key in that is contested elections, which, you know, you don't see strongly in legislative races, but in local races you do. And we saw that, for instance, in Ormond, where there was a strong but not successful showing by, again, slow growth candidates opposing incumbents. Another dramatic election result was the Republican sweep of state legislative races. There are no Democrats representing Volusia County this year, something that happened for the first time since Reconstruction 2 years ago. Patrick Henry, really, it was his vote. It was his race to lose in regaining his seat. He was defeated by only 61 votes in 2018. He lost to Elizabeth Federhoff this time by a pretty healthy margin. She got 53% of the vote to his 47%, which wouldn't be that strange, except that that district has a Democratic registration majority, and but she pulled it out. In West Volusia, Dolores Guzman lost to Webster Barnaby only 2 years ago. She had defeated him for the West Volusia Hospital Authority seat, but he pulled it out to win that legislative seat. And the really hard fought one was District 9 Florida Senate seat, and that's neighboring Osceola County and just a little bit of Volusia County. Actually, there was a little bit of gerrymandering going in there. The Seminole County is majority Democrat, but just barely, and the heavily Republican Southwest Volusia was thrown into that district to make it stronger for a Republican, and in fact that's what happened. It was a very, very close race on the Seminole County, Osceola County side of things, but not on the Volusia County side of things. So those were the big surprises. Another was the resounding success of reauthorization of Volusia Echo and the Florida Forever land buying program. Again, we are seeing voters concerned about growth and quality of life issues. Both won. Land buying won with 76% of the vote. I mean, this is Florida. Nothing gets 76% of the vote. Echo won with 72% of the vote. Pretty amazing. All the more amazing because the local Republicans had come out against it, and it was on their palm card that they were, no vote was on their palm card, which they handed out at voting places. Palm cards are very very effective, but fewer people were voting in person this year, and so didn't get a palm card handed to them. So that was another COVID era effect. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to question and answer and hear what you want to know about, and hopefully all the technical end of things will work so I can get these. So what are the questions? What are the races you're wondering about?
Mark, this is a pretty general question, but why do you think the polling was so far off in terms of the elections?
That's a big one. Like all people who follow politics, compulsively was looking at 538 predictions and the other polling. Florida was especially off, and it was actually more off than 4 years ago. 4 years ago, you could at least say that that we were within the range of of the polling uncertainty. Here we were wildly off, and people are still dissecting that. I can't tell you why. I think part of the reason is they thought the pollsters thought they had corrected for less educated voters who are harder to reach and are less likely to respond. They had not. Reaching rural voters and reaching people. Fewer people answer their phone now, and like this is something that's really breaking polling. Is nobody fewer people have landlines, and fewer people answer the phone if it's not somebody they know. I have to answer my phone all the time because I don't know who's trying to contact me for what I do, but most people don't. And you know, a quarter of my calls are people trying to reach me about my car's extended warranty.
Okay.
I see we have a question about the amendments. Okay, amendments are fascinating because again, we're a very red county, and yet we're a county that likes the minimum wage. 57% of Volusians voted for the minimum wage, 60% of the statewide. The other thing that kind of interests me was the jungle primary amendment, Amendment 3. Excuse me, Amendment 2 was minimum wage. Amendment 3 was the jungle primary, and jungle primary is basically a vote to blow up the primary process, and I can understand the desire to do that. Because we have a system in which in Volusia County, like 28% of voters are no party voters. So they don't get a say in the primaries, and it skews things. It makes for a very low turnout primary. In Flagler, you know, Democrats who make up about 30%, and you know, the near 30% of no party voters don't even get to vote for county commissioner there, because they have partisan county commission races, and often only Republicans run, so you get no choice. So something has to be done to open up the primary, because Floridians are very fond of not voting for a party. Even people who often vote for the same party don't want to be identified with the party. And we have some counties where the no party vote is actually the second most voter registration. A lot of rural, very, very red counties, you'll have a Republican majority, you'll have a lot of Republicans, and then the second highest number of voters will be no party, and Democrats third. And likewise in South Florida, there are counties where the Republican Party is third behind no party voters. So this failed because you need 60% to pass an amendment, and but it's still got 57% of the vote statewide and 51% of the vote in Volusia. So a lot of people want to blow up, a majority of the people want to blow up the primary system. And this has to put pressure in the long term to do something to change the primary system and give non-party people a voice. Amendment 4 was the stop us before we amend again amendment, which would make it hard to it would force a second vote to pass a constitutional amendment. People like their constitutional amendments, and that failed not only to pass, but to even get a majority. So that's good. And it's, you know, it was a sketchy undertaking, and to this day nobody knows exactly who is funding it. So another question here, Volusia County School Board race. That one I'm really not very conversant on. This is a hard time for school board because of COVID. There are a lot of unhappy parents out there, and actually ethically, I can't weigh in anymore on school board because my lovely wife is one of the public information officers for the school system, and so I'm kind of taken out of that for ethical reasons. But yeah, when you see the name Cindy Lane as a spokesman, that's my lovely wife. So I'm afraid that's all I can say. Let's see, comment and primary, what's your, on the Republicans in Congress. This again, massive failure of polling in Florida. And again, there's been bad polling errors across the country, but more so in Florida. And a lot of it has been inability to reach Hispanic households. The Hispanic vote is something that it's almost a misnomer, because every nationality of Hispanic has its own political leanings. The Cubans are different from the Venezuelans, who are different from the Mexicans, who are different from the Puerto Ricans. So if you lump them all in the category Hispanic and think you've polled them right, well, you haven't. So this is another challenge for future pollsters, and I don't know how you get around it. And again, it's the problem of lumping so many diverse people into this big bucket we just call Hispanic. And it's someone's going to have to think of a better way of gauging that. We had in South Florida two congressional seats flipped, one of which was known to be close. The other was supposed to be safe, according to most of the experts who were taking the temperature of this. So again, this has been a very good year for Republican Party in Florida. And I think at least one factor was that Democrats were trying to do their campaigning at a remove because of COVID problems, whereas the Republicans were more doing person-to-person campaigning. And once the pandemic is over, I think we'll see things revert a little bit. When that'll be is anybody's guess.
Mark, do you think we'll see a split in the Hispanic community between South Florida and I'll say the I-4 corridor, the Central Florida corridor?
Yeah, I do think so, because there are strong differences between Cuban community, Venezuelan community, and Puerto Rican community, and certainly Mexican community. In Volusia, we have both kind of the Puerto Rican community, some smattering of Mexican community, and Venezuelan. My first wife was Venezuelan, and so I know that it's difficult. Just talking to my own former in-laws, it's hard to make generalizations about the Venezuelan vote, and this is something that's going to that people are going to have to get a better handle on. I've talked to some of them, and I don't know. And so, but yeah, there's a big difference between the I-4, which is heavily Puerto Rican, and people who have come from Puerto Rico to New York State and northern New Jersey, and then to I-4 corridor. Let's see. Talked a little bit about slow growth as being a big factor in local elections. Georgia. Oh, Georgia. Can the Democratic Party in Florida do what Georgia did? And you know, there were claims that that people were starting to think this way 2 years ago, but we've seen, you know, during the Gillum campaign, this was his big claim that he would be trying to do this. But, you know, there have been few more spectacular crash and burns in Florida politics than Andrew Gillum. And someone else needs to pick up that mantle. It is enlarging the vote is not only good for the party, it's just good for democracy generally. And I do hope, not just for the sake of Democrats, but for the sake of just having a more representative democracy out there, that Florida does enlarge its voting population. We've had really good turnout this election, and that needs to continue.
Mark, on the slow growth interest, I mean, this isn't the 80s anymore, and it's a very different landscape than it used to be in terms of the role of the county versus the development that is now primarily occurring in the cities. Do you think the public understands that, or is this just a reflection of public interest?
You know, that's a good point, is that, you know, land policies are a lot different now, and the tools that a county or even a regional agency had to control growth that existed 20 years ago have been largely dismantled. So we don't have the same kind of speed bumps that were in place when we had a more robust division of community affairs in Tallahassee. And we are going to have a slight respite from fast growth because we're in this unexpected recession. We went from boom to recession in like 3 weeks in March, which is something that has like never happened in my lifetime. Normally economic brakes get tapped a little more smoothly. So this is going to slow some projects, and which gives us a chance to catch our breath should we choose to do so. And I don't know that we'll choose to do so, because what happens is in recessions, areas get desperate for growth, and then they and then they get choosy in good times when it's a little too late. That's our pattern. Florida legislature and DeSantis. That's a good question. DeSantis has gone through some pretty major shifts in just the short time, the 2 years, you know, that he's been in office. You know, he came out as kind of an unknown endorsed by Trump, and then in his first year, maybe first 8 months, started to be known as kind of a moderate. He was talking about teacher salaries and good and environmental rules and water quality. And then just in this election season, he's become very militant, and enough so that I don't, he has, you know, this flaky anti-protester bill that he's been pushing, which is too much even for conservative legislators. You know, to expand stand your ground, which is already a problematical law. You know, I refer to it jocularly as the shoot a protester bill, but, you know, that's going to be there. And I don't think it has wholehearted support, even though it, you know, it makes the Trump people happy. Will that hurt him in 2022? I cannot tell you 2022 is going to be like, because it's going it's going to be a very different political environment. It depends on the success of the Biden administration. It depends on the success of beating back COVID. And I'm an optimistic person. I think that we will look back on this time as a deeply strange time in a couple years. But it is my policy that to not speculate about the rise of candidates in an odd number year, which people are sick of horse race commentary by the time inauguration day gets there. So I try real hard not to write about horse racy things until at least Halloween in an odd number year. And sometimes it's really hard to do that because people position themselves ever earlier. But truly, the readership's, I know the readership's sick of hearing it. So I try just to put that out of my mind until next fall. So don't talk to me about 2022. Other questions?
Mark, we're going into an unusual period. Not only has the county council shifted pretty dramatically in terms of membership, but we're going into the implementation of Amendment 10. And so county government is going to shift substantially in terms of how it functions. Any thoughts on what this council is going to bring to that process?
Amendment 10, now remind me which amendment? There's actually a couple amendments.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm thinking in terms of the sheriff, property appraiser, elections, they're all
the local
offices.
Yeah, that's going. So far, the effects of Amendment 10 are going to be seen in the coming year. And in the case of constitutional officers other than the sheriff, the sitting constitutional officers have been pretty comfortable with their relations with the county. So although organizationally they're going to have like more of a separation, as far as function, you're not going to see a lot of changes. The exception to this being the sheriff's department, which is going to be increasingly separate. But in the end, you do have the budgetary power resides with the county, not with the sheriff. And every sheriff has fought with the county council over their budget, with a slight exception of Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson had a better relationship with the county than most of our previous sheriffs. But since 1971, every sheriff has just had a blowout with the county council over funding, and this is just a perennial. And because of their increased separation, you're going to see that even more. 1971 reminds me that we are now at a major anniversary for the county charter. The county charter took effect on January 1st, 1971. So the big charter anniversary is coming up. Let's see, will we get minor league baseball team back? Boy, that's another one for next year. Next month, I'm told we will get some idea from baseball. The reorganization of minor league ball has been, for we fans of the game, very concerning. because there will be fewer teams, and there's a very good chance that Daytona's team could be demoted from high level A to low level A, which means that you'll get a less experienced player who will cycle through faster. But at least we'd have play, that would be, that, and that is not a certain thing, because there will be a contraction, and it would just be tragic to think that we could lose minor league baseball here. The closest minor league team to us, if we were to lose the Tortugas, would be the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, which is quite a haul to get to. So we will probably know sometime probably in early December what Major League's plans are. And there's kind of an update in today's paper, and that's says kind of stay tuned. And really it's not entirely clear what's going to happen next, but we should know like within a month or so. Voting for younger people. How did younger people vote? All we can go by are the exit polls, and boy, have they been wrong. Generally, the polling throughout has been that people under 30 are a great deal vote, not just a little, but a great deal more Democratic. That's certainly been my experience talking with younger people. My own kids are in their 30s now, so I guess they don't count as young people anymore. My son, speaking of which, my son's an economist, and so every once in a while he throws an economics concept my way, which is useful, and he talked about a continuity bias, what they call in his business continuity bias, and that's where investors tend to assume that things are going to continue the way they have been continuing. And all of my feelings about this up until this election have been flawed by my major continuity bias, and still does. So I'm at least I'm aware of it. Continuity bias, it's a thing. Former felon, I don't think there's a lot of stomach for finding a way for felons to vote by the legislature. Courts have come up with some very good programs for just letting people even know how much they owe, because once you're caught in the criminal justice system, it's not just what the judge says by way of sentence, but there's this whole universe of fees and charges that's very difficult to navigate, which is why the vast majority of people who are charged with a crime don't pay everything they owe. And it's not because they're stiffing the system, but it's just really hard to know what you owe. And as several federal judges have said, the state owes it to people who have been convicted of a crime to let them know where they stand. And I do hope to see something come out of the legislature to have a more rational system. Any other questions?
That looks good.
All right.
Mark, this is Nikki. I want to just thank you so much. We always can depend on you for an engaging, insightful presentation of election results. And I also want to thank you for the wonderful work you do every day in the paper. I always look for your column because there's always some tidbit that I can take home and say, wow, I hadn't thought of it that way. And thanks to the News-Journal for the coverage they did for all of the different races and presenting both sides. I think that's great education for our community. And, you know, last year was an important year for the league. We celebrated our 70th anniversary a year ago in September, and then of course the 100th anniversary, and you did some wonderful reporting for us, and I used some of your information in some of my remarks throughout the year, but thank you for the time and effort to highlight our organization and the work we do. So I'm going to ask all of those present to let's give Mark a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much. It was just terrific. And we hope to see you again in another couple of years. We never know what to expect with elections these days. So it's always fun to hear your take on it. As far as the future for the league, we do have a couple of events coming up in December. Members will be getting emails in the form of a constant contact message. We will be having a virtual social this year. Kathy Egley, our social chair, is planning some very interesting activities virtually, and so we hope that you'll be looking for that information. Now, I do have to let you know, members, when we send you an email, sometimes that email, depending upon your email provider, such as Gmail, that email will not go into your regular inbox. They tend to want to go into a thing called promotions or a spam box. So if you're not getting our emails in your inbox, please look for them there. Because if we have your correct email address and you do sign up, we are trying to send you everything you need. We're also going to have, and Marianne, maybe you can talk a little bit about this, a presentation in December on affordable housing.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to confirm some of our speakers, Nikki, but we're trying to assemble a panel to address both the needs and the resources in terms of affordable housing. Daytona Beach has some new initiatives on affordable housing, even though they've been in the business for many decades. They are looking at some new efforts, and also we have issues over on the west side along the same line. So we're trying to get a panel of 3 speakers to talk about different aspects of both the demands and the resources that are available.
Thanks, Marianne. So look for that email. Also, you can always go on our website, lwvc.org, and check our calendar. All that information will be there. Well, this has certainly been an eventful month. It keeps going, and we're still watching. I want to take the time, though, to thank each of you who has contributed so much to making this election run smoothly and educating the public. But I really would be remiss in not thanking a few people in particular. First of all, Carla Christensen, our voter service chair, for the remarkable job she always does. Thank you so much, Carla, for everything you do to make sure that the voters have the information in a variety of different ways. It was so challenging this year, and yet you overcame it, and your team did a remarkable job. Thank you. Ann Smith, Ann, who is a Candidates Forum moderator extraordinaire. This was a very challenging year, and not only does she moderate, but she coordinates the different candidates forums. We did, I believe, 3 of them this year, a combination of virtual as well as live. And it was so successful that I know that the Lake Helen folks want to make this an election event every year with us. Sandy Horakami. Sandy, I can't thank her enough for the tremendous background work that she does to get our voter guide on 411 up and running. It is a Herculean task. And thanks to her and her team for the questions and the outreach to the candidates and all of the input on Sandy's part. It's tremendous support. And then Jean Tanke. This year we got out over, I believe, 2,800 Get Out the Vote postcards, encouraging those returning citizens who qualified to vote, not only to register, but to go ahead and turn out. And certainly that had a positive impact. Each of you contributed in many ways. We had folks watching the canvassing board. We had people at the polls. We had people guarding the mailboxes for the mail-in ballots, all to make sure that we could attest to the fact that our election was safe, secure, transparent. And we are very lucky to have an elections department led by Lisa Lewis, who certainly does a tremendous job with that. So I think Volusia can feel very good about the election that we had in terms of its fairness and transparency. And kudos to you for contributing to that work. Again, unless there are any other announcements for the good of the cause, Carla.
I want to thank Nikki, who worked much harder than anybody has any idea. She was relentless in keeping us out in the public through letters to the editor, through her social media posts, and we hang together because we've had amazing leadership under Nikki for the last couple of years, but this year in particular, I've never seen anybody do a better job. So thank you, Nikki, and thank you to all of the people who worked on the voter service efforts. This isn't a one-person job. This is a teamwork, and our league came out in huge numbers saying, what can I do? What can I do? And I just want to thank every one of you who participated and made all the efforts come together. It was, if nothing else, it ran smoothly in Volusia County. And I'm proud of every one of you who worked so hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Any other announcements for the good of the group? Well, again, many thanks to Mark Lane. We look forward to having you again soon after the next election. Let us rest first and kind of get over our exhaustion from this one. But thank you again for the service you provide to the community, Mark. We all very much appreciate it. And thanks to all of you. And I wish each of you a very, very happy Thanksgiving and happy holiday season. With that, Mara, did I see your hand up? Mara Whitbridge, did I see your hand up? No? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we're going to close for the morning. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful holiday season. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.